Welcome to this week's episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm. This week, we sit down with Mike Babcock, the head coach at McKendree University. In this conversation, Coach Babcock discusses his humble beginnings in the profession, how he has navigated the ever-changing world of college football, and his commitment to pushing the game of football forward. But first, a word from CoachComm.
Deuce left, check with me. If they're in quarters match, we're going to Pittsburgh or Ohio.
They're in zero.
Let's go Hippo, Seattle, wide choice. If we call the protection right, it's 6.
When a play call is the difference between winning and losing, your headset choice could be your most important decision. When the call counts, CoachComm is the only choice for clear, dependable communication. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
We got it, guys. Good job.
Now, let's get inside the headset with Coach Babcock. Coach, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Everything's good here in Waco, and it sounds like it's good your way as well.
Absolutely. Good weather and good football all around.
There we go. Well, let's go ahead and dive in here. First question we always ask on the podcast is, what was that moment in time that you knew you wanted to be a part of this great profession, that epiphany that you were like, man, I got to be a part of this?
I think it was my second year in college. I was at UCLA as a player and ended up still being on scout team. But I kind of befriended the graduate assistant at the time. And I think there was one time there was a play that I'm like, it was a trick play. I was like, well, I think you should go cut the defensive end as opposed to pass block them and doing something. And he brought that to the coordinator. And then all of a sudden I'm getting asked questions as a player, as a scout team guy, of how to do things. And I think I learned early on that if I'm not able to make it to the NFL, maybe I can help somebody else make it to the NFL. And I've had family members that have been coaches and a lot of good friends being coaches. And that GA is still in the profession right now in the NFL. And so, that's, I think, probably the first time I truly am like, you know what, I want to be a college football coach.
That's awesome. Getting asked questions as a player and putting some input in, that's big time. So, playing at UCLA, this is one of the eras where UCLA was pretty dang good, playing a couple Pac-10 championships at the time. But you made a decision there going into your senior year to go ahead and put the headsets on a little quicker. What went to that decision, and what did you get out of kind of gaining that extra year that other players may miss before they get into coaching?
Well, I instead of diving everything into being the best, whatever it is, I played linebacker, so being the best linebacker that I can be, and that's the way that I can help my team win a championship. I truly felt like, what can I do off the field? There's got to be something. Maybe it's the coaching staff, maybe it's on game day, whatever that looks like. And I really kind of dove headfirst into that, knowing that my future wasn't going to be as an athlete in the NFL, but maybe as a coach, I can take you to the next level and be able to drive that force. That was kind of my mantra going in. And I literally just hung out every single day, every single hour in the coach's office. If I wasn't in class, I was in the coach's office and was there from 6:30 in the morning until 11 o'clock at night, almost every single night as a student.
Right.
Just whatever I could do.
Well, that kind of ruins one of my questions that I typically ask where, you get done playing and then you go step into that office and all of a sudden you realize the grind and all the stuff behind the scenes that, as a player, you just didn't realize those coaches were showing up at 6 a.m. and they were leaving at midnight. And, just all the film that they watch. So as you are a senior, as you are, transitioning from a player to a coach, how eye-opening was that? Just all the detail and all the things that go into, being as successful as you guys were.
I'm pretty sure that every coach in America, when he first gets into coaching, is like this, or at least it was for me, when it's like, oh my God, I wish I knew this as a freshman. How much better would I have been as a player if I knew exactly what was going on right now? And I ate it up, and I loved it. My coach at the time, my defensive coordinator, funny story, actually thought I was an idiot for actually getting into college football coaching. He's like, Babs, you need to you're at UCLA. Go be a stockbroker. Go be a lawyer. Go make money. Go do all this stuff. Don't be a football coach. Don't do it. But I'm telling you what, I ate it up because I love the X's and O's. I love that strategy of kind of working against the other guy. But then I also love the ability to kind of bring those players along with you. It's not what I know, it's what they know. And so that teaching mentality, I think, was huge. And I really dove into it, loved it, and obviously been doing it ever since.
A question I like to ask is when that first opportunity with a player is kind of within that 2-3 year range of graduating, when you're all of a sudden working with, I don't know exactly how you were at UCLA, but I'm sure you hung out and, played the PlayStation or, whatever system was out and, hung out. And all of a sudden you kind of transition to this point where you're coaching some of these guys up. And I'm not saying that these two relationships can't exist, but all of a sudden you do have to kind of put that line in the sand. It's like, hey, I'm not the homie anymore. I'm Coach Babcock here. What was that transition like? How did you handle, just stepping more into that professional role with your peers?
It was, I decided this is what I wanted to do. And I wanted to be the best GA, best coach that UCLA's ever had. That was my goal, was to be the best GA possible, even as an undergrad.
Yeah.
And I pretty much went full tilt. I still had friends on the team, but if I was at a bar, I'll be honest, if I was at a bar and another football player walked in, I'd finish my drink and leave. To be brutally honest, the coaches probably didn't care, at least I don't think, but I wasn't able to be in a staff meeting, that first year, because I think there was that little hesitation of oh, well, this guy's too close.
Yeah.
And I wanted zero. I spent more time with the GAs than I spent with the football players with it. And right or wrong, that's just kind of my mentality of I wanted to dive in and do everything I could to be the best coach possible. And I didn't think that was enjoying beer, in a bar, or being that kind of, if they were going to respect me, I wanted to be able to kind of separate myself a little bit from what they do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, in those first couple of years there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it from my research, you work with the linebackers, D-line and offensive line. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so I was, as an undergrad, started in linebackers. There was a head coaching change, after my first year as a graduate assistant, head coaching change, and ended up moving to D-line after that, which was great. And then you got to remember, this was back in the day where there was one GA on offense and one GA on defense. That's it. There was no quality controls. There was no interns at every position that there are now at a lot of Power Fives. It's 1-on-1.
Yeah.
And spring ball of my third year, the offensive GA had left, so I had done both. I had to do game plan or practice plans for both sides, everything. And I went to the head coach and I said, "Hey, I've never been on offense. Do you mind if I, go to be the offensive GA instead of the defensive GA? I think that would help me in my profession."
Yeah.
And he said, "Sure, let's do it." And the funny thing is even though I played defense, I've coached defense. I think that was 2004. So you're talking 19 years ago. I've been on offense ever since,
right.
And I've never looked back.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I was definitely going to kind of get to that, but let me ask this question here first. Obviously, the profession can be volatile. Now, I don't know the circumstance on where you got the new coach, whether the old one was fired or took a different job or whatnot. But I mean, just the volatility of it, having kind of that change as a coach. What was that experience like for you? Was there anything eye-opening, seeing just the staff change, people not get retained, yada yada yada, just all the stuff that comes with transition, I guess?
It's very interesting as a GA because you have the same mindset, I think, of a lot of the assistant coaches.
Right.
Am I still going to have a job? This new guy's coming in. Am I going to still have a job? But at the same point, you're not married, usually not married, don't have a lot of kids. And I still remember this to this day when Carl Durrell, he was the new head coach, when he came in. First day, I wanted to kind of go up and shake hands. It was right after practice. And the O-line coach who was on the previous staff, he's like, "Babs, you got to understand there's a lot of things riding for these assistant coaches that are going to want to talk with the head, the new head coach, because they've got wife and kids and they're trying to put food on the table. It might not behoove you to kind of try to jump in line in front of them. So that was very eye opening.
Yeah.
And so that was really interesting, but I ended up taking that as, a coaching change, and I was able to stay on, and I wanted to kind of be a fly on the wall. I was really intrigued on the new coaching staff, because I really wanted to know how does this new staff do it than the last staff, and when I get my chance, what does that look like, and what do I want to take from each of these, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, so you kind of alluded to earlier that you were a defensive guy through and through, and then all of a sudden you get a little taste of and hadn't been back since. I'm sure as a head coach you're involved on both sides of the ball, all three phases. But what was it about just kind of getting uncomfortable a little bit, and honestly, what nudged you to say that? I mean, that's a very mature thing, I think, for a GA, because I would always hear when I was a GA and a younger coach, I would hear all those guys say, "Man, hey Mario, get on defense, man, get on defense. Get on defense." And I was like, nah. And I always stayed on offense. I never took that advice. Did somebody nudge you there? If not, how did you know to do that? Or ask that question?
As if I counted both my years as an undergrad and as a GA when I was at UCLA, that was 5 years, 2 as an undergrad and 3 as a GA. And I've spent the first 4 on defense. And so having to do both, having to break down practices for both sides, having to get scripts ready for both sides in spring, I thought I could be a better coach. Yeah. If I went to the other side. And it was more of, okay, in another year or 2, I'm the linebacker coach somewhere. At least now I know a little bit of the offense. Yeah. I never thought I'd stay on offense.
Right.
It was just more of how can I use, and I have throughout my career, how can I use the other side of the ball and my knowledge of the other side of the ball to help my players understand what to do, how to do it, that sort of thing. So there wasn't a specific person. It was probably just more fate or just me wanting to try something new.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Good decision and good choice. And that's something I advise young coaches myself whenever I do get those calls. So now let's get into the hard part of the profession. Just anytime you're stepping away from that alma mater, stepping away from that first opportunity, if it is, where you played at, getting that first job. So in 2005, you get your first opportunity that's away from UCLA. And, once again, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a quality control intern. And this is in 2005 at Colorado. And so a couple questions here. How did you even get in the door, even knock on the door for this opportunity? And then number 2, just talk to us a little bit about quality control, because right now it means 100 different things just depending on the place that you're at. And then once again in 2005, these kind of jobs really were very rare to see around different places. And so what was your responsibilities at that point in time?
Well, the quality control itself, at least at CU, I'd equate it to a GA. You're breaking down film, you're getting practice stuff ready. You're technically not, you weren't allowed to be on the field coaching, but you were able to at least help all the assistant coaches. It's another GA. You're up in the box, on game day. You're doing something. You're getting paid next to nothing. And so it's not like, again, some of the Power 5, quality controls that are making $30 or $40 or even $100, $1,000. Like, I think I was making $1,000 a month, doing it. And there were 4 of us, 2 GAs and 2 quality control that were, I think the room had to have been a closet. And the closet that we were in, we had, my desk was a door that they put on 2 filing cabinets, and I can put my laptop on top of that. And the room, so my back, so there'd be the other GA be behind me, and there's maybe like about that much room between our back. So we're in kind of tight, all 4 of us, and we're breaking down film and breaking down practice and just working your tail off to try to get it done. So that's that was my experience,
Yeah.
at CU and what we did. Worked for great coaches. And the funny thing is that just like I talked about a coaching change at UCLA, it was actually the exact same thing at CU as well. Between 05 and 06, there was a coaching change there, and I was able. So in 5 years, I worked for 4 different head coaches.
Yeah.
So that was definitely an interesting stat. So.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure as you're going through it in that very specific time, it's like, very uncomfortable, a lot of stuff going on, trying to stick around on staffs. But I'm sure you look in 2013 when you get your first head job, man, you got 4 different things that you were able to see and pick some good and bad away from all these coaches and put yourself in a good situation as a head coach. So, obviously in the moment, not always a great thing, but, in hindsight, sometimes just being exposed to a bunch of different coaching styles and leadership styles can always be pretty good. Now, it's funny. I love hearing head coaches, especially head guys, talk about their humble beginnings. You're sitting there typing on a door with no room, and you're just 8 years away from being a head guy. And that's just kind of a crazy perspective. When you're sometimes sitting in some of those rooms. Now, what was I guess we skipped over a part. How did you get that job? What was your end to getting that job?
Sure. So when I was at UCLA, some of the staff that were there are actually ex-CU guys. So Carl Durrell, Eric Bieniemy, Tom Cable, John Embry, all of them were kind of ex-CU guys at some point. And there were about 2 to 3 coaches from CU that came out that spring just to kind of talk shop, talk ball. And so I kind of met them kind of through that. And it got towards kind of the end of my GA-ship. It was close to probably April or May after my 3rd year as a GA. And as a 3rd year as a GA, you're out. There is no more GAing. So struggling and had an opportunity to go to, I think there was 2 Division II schools I could have gone to as a coach. And this opportunity at CU came about and wanted to try at the time. They were in the Big 12.
Yeah.
So was very intrigued of trying another conference, intrigued of trying another head coach and his philosophy and what they want to do. And to have kind of my, network double by going to another Division I program. So they ended up calling me, having a position open like this, and we ended up having a phone interview. I think I had a phone interview with the entire offensive staff, and ended up getting the job and was out there in June and ready to roll for August.
Anytime I hear interview pop up, I love to just have a brief discussion because I think everybody's interview experience is just so different, regardless of the times. Like, I know you hire guys and you interview them, and I'm sure you have a very unique way you like to get what you want to know out of these different guys versus, maybe a rival head coach in your conference. Just does it totally different. So a phone interview at this point in time, so there's no Zoom, there's no Skype. Maybe it was just coming out at that point in time. But, what did that look like for you? What did you have to have prepared as you hopped on this phone call?
I think it's, especially at that time, and probably the same, how many Power Fives are flying out a potential GA,
right,
for an interview. So it's not like, we can do this in person, and it's all before Zoom. So, it became, I'm trying to even remember some of the questions. I think some of it had to do with X's and O's. I think more of it had to do with just, especially as a GA, what's your day-to-day operations? And so, especially for those coaches, they want to know, like, hey, are you, how much film are you breaking down? What other duties, do you do during practice or do off the field? What's the off season like? They want to know that the cog in the machine can keep going, is really what they're looking for. And, I remember we had us GAs had cubicles at the time at UCLA and stepped into the conference room. No one was in there. And, just had a phone conversation, with the CU staff at the time. And, I think did a good job. I think if I remember, they were going to bring me out for, their June camp or something to kind of double check to make sure I was good to go. But, so that was kind of my first true interview or phone interview, to get a job.
I got you. All right. Well, it's the first stop. These early stops, I think, are always interesting because it's obviously the biggest room for some growth. What was your takeaway from that experience at Colorado? Just as far as learning and growing as a coach.
I think the biggest thing is just the different personalities of head coaches. Because, like I said, I've worked for 4 and 5 years, during that time. And kind of getting, I think all of us young coaches are, it was told to me years and years ago, and I do believe this, that we're all getting our head coach's book. We're all putting things in, not physically, but kind of mentally. Okay, if I ran my program, how would I do it?
Yeah.
And so I like this. I don't like this. This guy does it this way. I don't think the players are getting into it. So the head coaches was one thing for sure. And then to be honest with you, and this can happen, especially at a higher level, or I guess at any level, like the haves and the have-nots, like they've got, position rooms and a big team meeting room and they have a 4,000, 5,000 pound buffalo that runs out on game day. So that's exciting and new and everything. And Boulder is just unbelievable. Yeah. Great town, great city. Way different than Los Angeles, California. So I think those are probably the two biggest things, that I took away from it. And that's why I wanted to do it. I wanted to be a sponge. I wanted to, how does this program do it so that I can take that to wherever my next stop may be.
Well, let's get on that next stop. So 2007, you take the tight ends job at San Diego. I know there's some other parts that went along with that, some other responsibilities, and I do want to tap into that. But once again, always curious, how did this opportunity come about? Did you interview, blah, blah, blah? Who'd you know? All that good stuff. So how did you get the San Diego job?
Well, I think all of us GAs are dying to get that first, true job, that true full-time job, right. Where you're not, necessarily breaking down film and running scout teams, all the time, even though that's, what you do sometimes as a full-time coach.
Yeah.
The guy that had gotten the head coaching job, Ron Carragher, was an assistant at UCLA when I was there on the previous staff, the older staff. Had just gotten a job. It was the year after Jim Harbaugh had left for Stanford, and he had a position open. And I was kind of excited. I have a fiance. I've already been at CU for 2 years. Kind of excited to, I didn't really care how much it was, and sure enough, I think it was, if I remember, 20 grand in San Diego, California. That might be able to buy you maybe a closet, right. Nowadays, renting a closet out there. And that's where we live, in pretty much a closet, right. 1-bedroom apartment out there, because that's all we could afford. But that's how I ended up getting the job, and really nice to truly coach your own position and meeting the other coaches and having to, for lack of a better word, work well with others. Yeah. If you're the coordinator now, you're not truly making the decisions. You're the assistant. How does this head coach want things run, and how do I, get the guys going in what he wants to do? So it was an eye-opening experience and a lot of fun, and a lot of good coaches on that staff, and had a heck of a year in 2007. So it was a good experience.
So obviously we have a lot of coaches in general that listen to podcasts, but obviously we have a young group, and the goal is to hopefully allow for somebody to listen to this and be able to maybe reflect on something you talk about to help them in their career. And I think oftentimes we talk about the importance of network and the importance, you talked about expanding your network when you took the job at Colorado to double. Those kind of decisions are huge in the long run, because you end up working with these guys. And so you have an example of you end up working with the guy. So he gets the head job. What was the process? How do you get on the phone with him? How do you say, hey, coach, if you got some, I want some? How does that part work?
Well, I think, and I don't know if it's changed. I really don't. I talked to a coach that just got a job this year at a Division I school, and he's saying on average he's getting about 500 to 1,000 texts a day, and so that it's crazy. Yeah. And so it's not necessarily who you know; it's the relationship that you've built with them.
Correct.
And over time, I've tried to build good relationships with people, not just calling them when I want a job, but, hey, how's your family? Hey, how's Christmas? Hey, what are you guys doing, X's and O's wise? Hey, what, just talking shop, talking ball, and doing it for real, and finding that core of guys that believe you. And so when I called Ron, when I talked to Ron, I got him on the phone, the head coach at the time. That's the one thing. Can you get on the phone with him? Can you get in front of him is the big thing. But I think more importantly, like he'd even say it, he's like, okay, I remember Mike from my UCLA days. I remember him being smart and working hard. Let me get him on the phone and talk. And we talked shop, we talked run game quite a bit. I'm guessing we were probably on the phone for maybe about a half hour, just talking about kind of offense in general. And I think he called me back a day or two later and offered me the tight ends job there. And so I think that was, if I remember, that was pretty much the process.
I got you.
Getting there.
All right, and I got another question. I didn't prep you for this one. Anytime the fiance and the wife pops up, I definitely got to ask the question because, when you're in this profession, obviously they kind of have to adapt a little bit, and it's definitely got to be a strong partnership and some of this decision making stuff. And oftentimes you might meet this person in Colorado and they don't necessarily understand the profession as much. When all of a sudden you're saying, "Hey, I know we just met, but we got to go to San Diego now." When did you meet your wife, and how did she become acclimated a little bit to the profession and just the volatility of moving around so much?
Sure. Well, we talked before about my brain and how it works as far as going from defense to offense and just kind of being that mental person. I hate to say this, I did the same thing when it came to dating and girlfriends. So I met my future wife in LA, and she's actually a Penn State grad.
Okay.
So she's from the East Coast, moved out to LA after college. We met, almost coming into my last year as a GA, friends of friends. But I told her, and maybe other coaches have done this, I don't know, but I told her, I said, hey, when we started kind of going out on a couple dates and this and that, I said, hey, I really like you. This is going well. But just understand the profession that I'm in. And I kind of explained to her, I could be at a place for 30 years or 30 days, that's college football for you, and I would say, if you look at Group 5, Power 5, what's the average? 3 years?
Yeah, 3 years, yeah.
Yeah, it's we had a guy at CU at the time. He had to have been in his mid-40s at the time. I think he'd been at 16 different places in his coaching career, NFL, Division I, kind of all over, like 16 in a 20-plus year time frame. Like, that's crazy, for the wife and the kids. And so I told her what we were going to get into, and I told her that I'm not going to propose to you until you go through a move with me. If you can pick up and move and we can go somewhere, I'll propose to you. And this is probably dating for, I'm assuming, 5-6 months, at the time. So sure enough, I get the CU job, and probably within a month of getting there, she starts wanting to go shop for engagement rings. So you're like, okay, I guess you're right. I told you had to go through. Right. You're 100% correct. Yeah. You're right. Let's get going. And so ended up getting engaged, got the job at San Diego, and a real interesting turn. I got are you interested in going into the NFL question when I got to San Diego. And you talk about life changes and everything else. Not that I would have gotten the job, but it's like, no, I'm just married. I got my first full-time job. I don't necessarily want to be a quality control and keep, breaking down film. Right. But then when you look 20 plus years later, you're like, well, I wonder what would have happened. But it's in God's hands. God told me to stay there and get married and have a wife and kids and good family. So that's been my path so far. But yeah, so getting a wife that understands that, heck, the next place we were at for 5 years, even she was shocked that we were there for so long, let alone here for 11. Yeah. Not that we don't like the place or anything like that. It's just, we were kind of in that, every year we're moving, we're shaking. So it's an interesting profession, especially to be married and have kids.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that sheds some light a little bit on I had a coach, when I was younger listening to guys talk at the convention, as a matter of fact, and the basically the message was take some of those risks a lot earlier. Take that, in that situation where you got done in UCLA, had 2 full-time jobs where, most of us would have been chomping at the bit for our room then, but rather instead you go and take, not getting paid very much, breaking down some film some more because you didn't have that much responsibility. You didn't have the wife, you didn't have the kids. And I don't know if that's why you made that decision, but you don't have to really think about it in that situation when it's like, hey man, I just eat ramen noodles and get some really good experience rather than having to worry about, supporting somebody else. So it just sheds some light on taking some of those risks a little bit more earlier, before you have those major responsibilities. Because once you start having kids, I mean, you can't take that job, right? I mean, you can't go and be a QC at that point in time.
Well, think about it like this: if Ryan Day called me up at Ohio State right now and offered me $20,000, to go be a quality control there, it's like, what does that do to my family?
Right.
What does that do to I can't, I can't make that happen, and so now when you're 22 years old and you're, yeah, I don't care, maybe the parents can help, or you get a loan, or you figure something out. You go sleep on someone's couch.
Right.
You're fine with that. My back can't take that for a long time right now. I'm getting old. So.
Yeah, exactly right. All right. So now let's go back to the San Diego stop.
Yep.
First time having a room. And obviously you're super button up. I mean, you love the profession from the first dip of the toe into it. But you got your own room now. You're responsible for making sure these tight ends are ready to rock and roll every Saturday and, be where they're supposed to be and, on and off the field and all this kind of stuff. What was your biggest piece? What was the, I don't want to say, biggest hurdle, I guess, is probably the way I want to put it. Just in that first time having a room, what was something you really had to just get used to, learn how to do since that was your first time doing it?
I really think it's probably the first time I realized that not everybody learns the same way.
Yeah.
That there are guys that are, guys that, need to draw stuff and be physical with it. There's guys that, need to see it in a playbook. There's guys that actually need to go and walk through on the field and see it, out there. How many times, I say it all the time. I'm a rep guy. I've turned into a rep guy because all of my quarterbacks could probably on the board show you everything that you need to know and where to go with the ball and this and that, but they still throw interceptions when they get out there. They still are reading the wrong way. They're still doing a lot of things. And that's when that first job is when I realized how do I get the guys to where they need to go?
Yeah.
For instance, the coordinator and I would have a conversation because I had a tight end at the time that was very much a pass guy, very much a run around, great hands, do everything. The problem is we had 2 All-American wide receivers and an All-American quarterback. So my tight end wasn't getting the ball enough. So what did we want to use him for? Run blocking. Well, that's not what he's, designed to do. And so the dynamic of being able to, my frustration of knowing my guys, but yet still having to answer to the coordinator and to the head coach. And that dynamic is very, very interesting to, for lack of a better word, to work well with others.
Yeah.
And that's something that I had to learn very quickly. Not that I was right or not that, they were wrong or anything like that. It's that how do we get to where we want to go? And at the end of the day, how do we win more games and be happy no matter who gets the ball, no matter what we do? It's still about, getting that W, on Saturday.
And now, a quick word from Hader Athletic. Since 1954, Hader Athletic has been your trusted partner in football practice equipment. Handmade in the USA with care and dedication, our products are crafted to elevate your team's performance. But what truly sets us apart? It's our unwavering commitment to customer service. When you reach out, you'll be speaking to a real person with extensive product knowledge that prioritizes you getting your equipment fast. Experience the Hader difference today. Visit HaderAthletic.com and join the community of coaches who trust us for quality, reliability, and expertise. Hader Athletic. For coaches, by coaches. Save 15% on your next order by using promo code AFCA 2024 at checkout. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Well, I love that you said that. So this is a question I typically ask guys on a podcast, pretty standard, and I just don't know if I've really heard anybody, say that's one of the things you got to get used to, because as a GA, and as a quality control, you're working well with others, but they're pretty much saying, hey, we need to break down to this, and then you just go in your closet and go grind it out and then hand them this, and you're not really – it's not that much collaboration. That's gotten better as we've added more GAs, as we've added more support staff. So there's a lot of working together within those rooms now. But, like in your time where it was just you and another dude on one side of the ball, it's just interesting. So I love that you say that, because it is an important part of this deal. And, and unfortunately, I mean, there's still guys that have some work to do on that, because I forgot which coach I was on here with, but he was talking to a submarine. He's like, yeah, you're in a submarine with 10 guys every single day, all day, and if you're not good at working together, and you don't get along with one guy, man, it can make a really good job not as good, and that's important. Now, he also had another role, there at San Diego. You were the director of football operations. Am I correct there?
Yeah, I forgot about that, because that brings back nightmares and stuff too. Being in the Pioneer League. So For those that don't know, the Pioneer League is a non-scholarship league, and they're all over the place. Yeah. And so you're talking Drake in Iowa, you're talking Valparaiso in Indiana, Butler in Indiana, Dayton, Ohio. Nowadays they've got the ones on the East Coast, so you're flying everywhere. Yeah. And so my job was to get the tickets, get the flights, get the buses, get the hotels. I was that guy. And you talk about a nervous wreck. I still remember we're playing Butler at Butler. Great institution. It's awesome. If you guys are Hoosier fans, the movie Hoosiers, that's where they filmed it's a great place. Anyway, It's halftime, and I'm calling the run game. Coach had me call the run game. So all the runs. So at halftime, I'm writing down all the plays that we need to run at halftime, and then we break. We're going to go talk to our players. And I go and I grab my cell phone and I'm calling Domino's to make sure that we have our pizzas, ready to go after the game. Hey, the game's lasting a little longer. We're going to need it to be more at 4:30 than 4:15. Is there any, and so that's what it's like to kind of do the behind. So rather than just worrying about running power or running outside, I'm worried about how much pepperoni is on a pizza. So that the guys can eat after the game. So, that's, and all the other stories that go along with missed flights or lost iPod at the airport or buses don't show up or all that stuff, and you're just like shaking your head going, oh my God. So that was interesting. That was fun.
I love that you put the detail on the Pioneer League, because so I was at Davidson College, which is probably one of the newer ones, and I mean it's from Marist now. I don't know if Marist was in there at the point in time, which is up in Jersey, New York, I think. Marist all the way down to San Diego, and schools all in between, and that was my least favorite travel ever, because we didn't have enough money to really fly, have a charter flight. So we were commercial. And, if you had an overtime game, you're sitting here like, damn, I hope this game sure
we got to get to the airport.
We got to get to the airport.
Oh,
I mean, oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine being that guy. At least we had a dedicated DFO at that point in time. And he would, when it was all said and done, he was worn out just like the players. So, but I mean, obviously at the time, I know that wasn't, I know that they had you walking on eggshells all the time, but how much is the opportunity like that, especially early on at those type of schools where you do get some of that exposure to that side of game prep? How does that help you as a head coach now? I guess at that point in time, about 4 or 5 years later, you were a head coach, and these were some of the fires that you're putting out, there in McKendree. That ends up being beneficial, right?
Yeah, and I think especially as you get to this level, if I'm back at UCLA or if I'm at CU, I've got a lot of, and I'm the head coach, I've got football ops, I've got GAs, I've got high school relations, I've got all these people to go do stuff. At this level, you don't, you're out of guys. And so, for instance, I kid myself, I know we're going to get to McKendree here in a little while, but on Thursdays, during the season and an away game, I'm at Sam's Club deciding on how much Gatorade and water and snacks that we need for the trip. And every time I go, I start thinking, I wonder if Nick Saban is doing this at Alabama. In deciding how many,
right.
Gatorades there needs to be and how much ice,
Right.
So we all have our issues. Like all of the assistants have other jobs assigned to them and everything. And so, but all of the stuff is a GA, all the stuff is, all that football ops. So I can make a mean pot of coffee. UCLA taught me that, as a GA. I know how to make coffee. I don't drink coffee a lick. I do not know how to do it, but the defensive coordinator and linebacker coach sure love their coffee at 3:00 in the afternoon. So, but it's all those little things. I think that's what makes you a good coach, regardless of what level. But I think you just put your head down and go.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I roll.
Yeah, it's easy to love football. It's easy to love the X and O's. But sometimes, calling down those in the middle of the football game to make sure you got enough pizzas showing up it's not easy. Not easy to love sometimes, but it gives you great appreciation for the people that do that for you on your staff, whether you're in McKendree or UCLA, for that matter. So you spend a year there. Obviously we're calling a run game. You're calling at airports. You're just doing a lot of awesome stuff for a first-time job, and then you get the opportunity at the Colorado State-Pueblo. Once again, how does that opportunity arise, and what attracts you to the job?
So the guy that had gotten the head job, he was the tight ends coach at the time on the first staff at CU.
Okay,
great guy, awesome guy. I've kept in contact with him throughout. He ends up getting the job there, and I think he asked if I wanted to join him, and I said, sure, and really it was like I was a little nervous of jumping down to a Division II program because I've heard the rumors that the farther you go down, the harder it is to get back up.
Yeah.
So I was worried about that. But I think more than anything, the thing that really intrigued me was they're starting a program from scratch. In 2008 was the first time in 20 some odd years that they're bringing football back.
Okay.
It used to be Southern Colorado, University of Southern Colorado, back in like the 80s, and then the mid 80s they dropped it. So you're talking 30 some odd years, without a program, and so there's so many coaches in our profession that are able to go and take a job that maybe the team hasn't won, and build a team up, from there. But how many guys truly get to start a program from scratch where there's literally nobody, there's nothing, there's no freshmen, there's no seniors, there's no nothing. That really, really intrigued me, and something that was different than what most coaches. So even if it is a D2 school, I thought that, I think that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And to try something that's out of a lot of us coaches' wheelbarrow of just not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun.
Well, that makes I guess this little part that much more special. I didn't know that. I mean, I feel like I've only just known Colorado State-Pueblo. Just assumed they were there forever and always have been, always will be type deal. But back-to-back conference champs at some point in time there. What was that? 11-12. Back-to-back undefeated seasons. Set tons of offensive records. How on earth did you guys turn that thing around, or just not turn around? That's not the proper term, right? Because how did you build that thing up? Where in 3 years, you're undefeated and winning championships. How did that happen so quickly?
It was a crazy 5 years. It was 4-6, 7. I have a photographic memory. 4-6, 7-4, 9-2. 11-0, ranked number 1 in the country. Next year 11-0, ranked number 1 in the country. So it was kind of, for lack of a better word, a meteoric rise.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was all easy, and it wasn't like it was the biggest thing I learned, and something that I continue to try to bring into this is culture. I mean, it was. We are, especially at a D2 school, we are going to be more hard-nosed than anybody else. We are going to kick your absolute butt in the off-season and all the early morning workouts and all the, grind that blue-collarness into them. We're going to take kids, because we didn't take a ton of transfers at the time. We're going to take kids that are underlooked by the Division I just because they're a little smaller, just because No one gave him a shot. And because that we had such a great culture kind of started and built up from the beginning, once we got it rolling, I think we were good. Because if you look, what was crazy at the time, I want to say there was 100 plus, that first year in 2008.
Yeah.
By the time those guys were seniors, I'm willing to bet there was maybe 4 that were still on that staff. Why? Because the culture, the getting the right guys in.
Yeah.
But then that second, third year, that's when we really started to hit some really good ones. And now it's kind of a perennial Division II school with it. So, but culture is really what it is, and just trying to teach them, especially from scratch, because they had no idea. And us coaches, and I think this is true even when you have I guess you can say a losing team or bad leadership team. It's the coaches that end up having to be the ones that are like driving the force of this is how you do it. You want to get to the point where the players are doing that.
Yeah.
But early on, it was us coaches not yelling and screaming, but really forcing the hand of this is how you do things right. This is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Let's get it. So,
well, putting it bluntly, like, culture is definitely. I think the culture answer. Anytime you see a championship level team, that's all that exists. It has to exist. But you got to have the talent, right? I mean, there has to be some level of talent. And so I'm curious, especially early on, what are you saying to guys to say, hey, look, we didn't play football last year. No, we didn't do this. And so how are you getting the type of talent that you want to walk through the door when I know some of those guys are saying, oh, wait, no, I'm out. I'm going to go here. How?
It's actually what was interesting. It's actually the opposite, because to get kids in the door, it's free reign. No one's a starter.
Mm-hmm.
You could be a starter right now, so the ability and they, just like I told you why I was interested in the place, it's the same thing for the players.
Yeah.
They are, I'm going to put my legacy at the start, and it's going to be Joe Smith, statue in front because I was the guy that took him to places. And so, not that everything was easy or anything, but there's a draw. And I'll be honest, you said I still believe it's the Jimmies and the Joes, not the X's and the O's. So we had a lot of good players.
Yeah.
And to be honest, we also had the best facilities in the league. Okay. Like it was new, everything's new. So new facilities, new coaching staff, nobody on it. There's a lot of draw to that. And it wasn't until after then that other teams had to start obviously getting in a facility race to try to combat that.
Oh, that's interesting. I did not know that this story. Like I said, it does make it a lot more special there. And so, more individually here, this is your first time in a quarterback room, which is, if you're an offense guy, that's where you want to be, because that's the next step to being the OC and pretty close to being a head coach and all that kind of stuff. So what did it mean to you to be over the quarterbacks? And then, what was your growth? And let me throw this question in here too. I know it's a lot of questions in one deal here, but how do you go prepare to be a quarterbacks coach? Because there's a lot of detail that goes into all that kind of stuff. Where did you go to tap in to make sure you were prepared to coach that room?
Sure. So a little background, when I went over to offense, at UCLA, I was the O-line guy. At CU, I was the O-line and tight end. At San Diego, I was the tight end. And so I've had all this O-line tight end stuff, but not the skill position, and especially not quarterbacks. But the head coach has called me in his office, like, "Hey, Babs, we're going to move you to quarterbacks. Go learn." I'm like, okay. So here we go. I ended up so one of my mentors, one of the coordinators that I had worked with when I was at the University of Colorado, was now the offensive coordinator at Nebraska, named Sean Watson, and he's the head coach at Wofford now. Mm-hmm. But anyway. I would go out in spring and even to like their camps and just dive into everything. Just as I was a sponge as a GA, I had to be a sponge as a quarterback coach, and so understanding footwork and progression and kind of all the details. Like I could know progression based on just looking at a playbook.
Yeah.
And understanding that curl flat beats cover 3 or post dig beats quarters, whatever you're looking, that's easy to say. And I could teach that.
Yeah.
But what about footwork? What about arm delivery? Like where do you want your elbow with it? How do you want your follow through? What should your footwork be if I'm throwing to my right versus throwing to my left? And so all of those little things I didn't know, and that's what I needed to know. So being able to go learn from somebody and really just dive in and then just go do it, like what are the individuals that you do, drills that you do? Great. I'm going to go do that here and why. And after I started doing it, after a year or two, it's like, okay, let's go see how other people are doing it. Or maybe I change up a little bit of this individual drill based on what we're trying to get out of the offense a little bit. And so over the years, over time, obviously getting better at quarterback, probably the most position I know best. That's how I kind of was able to transition into QBs.
So who was the OC at that point? The titled OC, the guy that called the plays
at Pueblo?
At Pueblo, yeah.
I was.
So you were the OC. Okay, all right, that's bad on my notes here. I had pass game coordinator.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it was so technically I was the passing game coordinator and the O-line coach was the run game coordinator.
Okay.
But I called all the plays. I ran all the meetings. I did all that.
Okay.
And to be honest, I got, especially after San Diego, I could care less about titles. I could care less about money. I just wanted to coach football and have fun, and so it didn't bug me that I was the quote passing game coordinator.
Right.
Even though I did it all, I could care less. I just wanted to win football games.
Amen. Yeah, I was more going to push that towards if somebody else was calling the plays. I've always been intrigued personally about when you're the quarterback's coach, but you're not the OC. And, maybe the OC wants you to read it like this, and just the dynamics of that. But you were calling a play, so I was just going to see if you could give me a perspective there from that standpoint. But sounds like
I think usually, regardless of whether you're quarterback's coach, and in other words, or you're the old line coach, and the quarterback coach is the OC calling the run game.
Yeah,
I think you really have to have a great relationship with each other.
Yeah,
and for the coordinator to understand past concepts and what beats this, and having the good, game plan or whatever. These are my third down calls. These are my, base game plan, long distance, whatever it is. And a lot of times some of those good coordinators will actually ask, hey, what do you like here? What do you do?
Yeah.
Some of them can call it right off the cuff. It just depends. So, but I think I've learned both as a position coach and as a coordinator that it is difficult to call plays, and a lot of I think I learned this. You're a really good coordinator if you hand the ball off and the running back misses 7 guys or whatever and runs for 90 yards. You're a great play caller, with it. So whether it was me or something, that's what I kind of learned very quickly was it's the guys doing it, and how can I, get the right plays in with it. But
So, after this 5-year stint and, like you said, meteoric rise, and all of a sudden you're back-to-back, undefeated, all this good stuff, are you out? Are you seeking another opportunity? I know McKendree comes knocking. What was that offseason like after the 5-year stint where you've just seen this, this program just rise and take off and just be elite?
Well, I think after I'm trying to remember, I think probably after about 3+ years, that's when I was kind of like, okay, what's next? Is it a head coaching job? Is it back at Division I? Is it in the NFL? Like where can I get something? And not that I was heavily looking, I am not the type of guy that's turning in my resume to every single place in America.
Yeah.
But you kind of look, you're like, okay, am I ready to be a head coach? Am I ready to move on? Did I get enough stuff done? And I would have been happy if I just kept going, like I wasn't, I want to leave. It was more of just, what's that next step with it? And so this was the kind of first time or whatever that someone kind of came calling to me. And so the McKendree AD called me up and basically said, this was kind of the end of that last season. We weren't done with the season. We were about to hit the playoffs. And he basically said, hey, would you be interested in the head coaching job at McKendree? And I'll never forget this. The first question that I asked him, I said, well, where's McKendree? Where's McKendree University? Yeah. That's Division II. That's, that's the branding. and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, yeah, like if I asked, 100 people, 100 Division I coaches, if they could put it on a map, there might be only 2.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's Division II, but I'll be honest, the more I learned about the place, the more research I did, the more everything about it, I was like, this could be a winner, and this could be really good for me. It could be really good for my family. The location is great. There's a lot of great stuff, and that's when I kind of made the jump, with it.
So, I kind of, when I think of you, I think of like West Coast guy, especially UCLA, and I know Colorado isn't technically West Coast, but it's far enough out there to kind of group it with that. All of a sudden, this is a job is probably about as far out from the West Coast as you've ever been. Obviously a little different vibe than even I forget the league, the Colorado State-Pueblo.
The RMAC, the Rocky Mountain.
The RMAC.
Yep.
Obviously GLVC's little different vibe, all this kind of stuff. What attracted you to the job? What was it to you that said, hey, this might be good for me?
Well, not only going from coordinator to head coach, that's the obvious,
right.
One. You had mentioned it, location. I do think, and this was told to me early on, that there is a perception that West Coast can only do West Coast, that South can only do South.
Right.
And I'll be honest, I've talked to a couple athletic directors and stuff in my time here, just kind of throughout working and doing different things. And there is something to that. If I'm from South Carolina, I don't know if I'd want to bring in a guy that's from California.
Yeah.
Because how does he know what the high schools are like or this and that? And really, my take on it, having now been here in the Midwest for 11 years now, is high schools are high schools. Yeah. Relationships are relationships. Yeah. It'll take me 2 months to figure out where to go, truly where to go in the area, but especially the Division II level, put a pin on where you're at and draw a 5-hour circle around it. And that's 90+% of really, if you're going to recruit high school, that's the area that you're going to live in, because those are the parents that are going to come. Those are all the good things. So, and if you look at St. Louis, because we're right next to St. Louis, we're 20 minutes to downtown St. Louis here. So that's huge. That was actually better than Pueblo. Even though Pueblo was bigger than where we are here, we're literally 20 minutes to downtown St. Louis, and we have a normal prototypical suburb. So my family, awesome. My wife and I are kind of suburbanites. So to be able to kind of be around that area, yet 5 miles away, you could be in either the city or you can be in the country. I mean, there's cornfields, a couple blocks from here. So that was probably a huge thing for me on why I would want to, come here.
Yeah.
Try something new. And I thought I felt like we could be successful. I thought we could win. I felt like there was enough stuff at the time when it came to scholarship budget and operating budget and all those things that really are important when you start getting into this chair.
Yeah.
When you're a coordinator or a position coach, a lot of it becomes, who are my guys? How do I get them to play better? And that's kind of your focus and what you do.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it's like, no, I got to manage a budget. What's my salary pool? How many guys do I have on staff? Lots of different things.
Yeah.
So, but.
Well, let me ask you this question here. So my brother's a head high school football coach here in Texas, and I'm not making a comparison to high school to college jobs or anything like that, but I do think it's a commonality from a head job perspective. Is one of the interesting things I remember when he was going through the process is he was telling me, it was like, he did the interview, I hit him up, hey, how'd it go? He was like, man, they don't care about stick, they don't care about quarters, like in that interview it was about, what am I going to do with the program? How do I take care of the kid? How am I going to get the buses arranged? All the stuff that, you don't really get that developed on as a coach as you're coming up. So that interview process, when he started asking about, I guess maybe some of your DFO stuff might have shown, I guess, at that point in time. But, what were some of the unique things of that interview of being a head ball coach that, it wasn't about football, about the gridiron, I guess.
I think that I probably had a different one than most ones will. And I love my AD. We've talked about it, quite a bit about that process, what he was thinking of. Now that I've been here forever, we chat about it all the time. Great friend.
Yeah.
his mindset was he's going to look at every offensive coordinator who's fairly young in the top 25 of Division II, the top 15 of FCS, the top 15 of NAIA, and the top 15 of D3.
Yeah.
And he's just going to cold call and just kind of start his Excel spreadsheet. So the fact that we were number one at the time in Division II, obviously that excited him, along with it.
Yeah.
What he was looking for was how is this person going to react and be with, we're at a small private school. So
Yeah.
how is this guy going to be able to handle the lunch ladies and handle the secretaries and handle the admissions officers? Like, is this guy going to be all over the place and yelling and screaming and doesn't get what he wants? Or can he manage and maneuver, what needs to be done? I'll never forget this. He came out to Pueblo and he takes me to lunch one day, and he said, that's when I knew I wanted that you were my number one guy, because I asked the waiter what his recommendation was for, just kind of BSing. Hey, what do you like? I ate, this was the big one. I was able to cut my meat. No idea what I ate, steak or chicken or whatever,
Yeah.
but I was able to use a knife and a fork correctly, and knew how to cut and put the knife where it's supposed to be.
Wow.
And then even as I'm leaving or something during lunch, a lady drops her jacket on the floor, and I go over and I pick it up and I say, hey man, you dropped this. Just want to make those three things alone got me the job here. I told you, it's probably way different than anybody else.
Yeah.
They never asked me X's and O's. They never asked me how I would do buses or how, none of that stuff went into it. I think it was probably for him just more of a feel
Yeah.
of what this place needed, and how it could be, how I could help win and kind of do those other things that we talked about, how to be really the face of this university.
Right.
Because a lot of the small Division II schools, the football coach is kind of the most well-noticed guy. And so that's what he was looking for. So I guess I checked some boxes. So with it,
that's you knew where to put that knife. That's definitely unique in its
I knew
own.
how to cut my steak, and so that's why I'm on my kids right now. My son's in junior high. No, you got to do it like this. You never know if you're going to get that job opportunity,
Right.
Based on how you cut your steak.
Well, that's a very specific thing, but at the same time, man, I mean, how you do anything is how you do everything. I hear a lot of people say that, and so that's pretty awesome that he was able to find the right guy, as it turns out, just by some of these unique things. But that puts you in a unique situation. You accept the job, you get the job, and you sit there in that chair the first day, and you're like, I'm not going to tell you what you're like, because I don't know what you were thinking at that point in time. But now you have to answer every last question that happens within that football program. How much water do you want on the grass out there on the practice fields? Every freaking question that goes through that program. How do you prepare yourself for that? Or maybe there's not an answer, but what is that like?
I don't think you truly do.
Yeah.
I heard a great line that assistant coaches make suggestions, head coaches make decisions.
Yeah.
And it's not to put but the buck stops with you. If my job has now become, do I want 10 more minutes of Indy, or do we need 10 more minutes less of Indy? That's the stuff that you start, rather than, okay, how do I beat quarters coverage, or, what's the best blitz on third down, that we can do. Right. So, and I think the rolling off the back and understanding that stuff's going to happen, stuff's going to come up, and how do I deal with it? I usually say, especially at our level, I'll kid with other head coaches that the day or the time that you feel like, today's going to be a great day. Awesome. I've got everything, got all my ducks in a row. I'm ready to go. And then just a storm comes in of everything that could go wrong in the day. This guy's failing classes, and they can't find a receipt, for this deal, and just all the bus company lost the quote, and we don't have buses this weekend. Just all of those little things that now all of a sudden are your responsibility, and but you deal with it. Like I've got to have a rain out plan. If we're thinking it's going to be rained out or even lightning, do we have the gym reserved? You know, do the trainers know? Do they, you know, so all those little things I think are what's important. And the only way to do it for the most part is to go through it.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think there's any book that I could have read or anything else that could have prepared me for just all the stuff that can happen, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
But just kind of everything with it. So
let me ask this question here. This profession is just obviously so unique in its own rights, and you know every profession is, but you never really get the opportunity to get comfortable. Not that you would want to, anyways, because you always kind of got to be growing. You can never get complacent in this profession. But obviously, you know, you're at UCLA, 2 different coaches in that 4-year stint as a coach. You're at Colorado, 2 different coaches in that 2-year stint. You're at San Diego for a year. You're at Colorado State-Pueblo, and that's just such a unique thing in its own right. But yeah, that was the longest place you were at for 5 years. But I mean, god dang, what a just a whole like unique situation that is, anyways, right? And so all of a sudden you get here and you've been here at 11. You've been here 11 years. At what point do you not say I'm comfortable, I got this, but at what point in time do you just say I'm in a groove? Like, okay, I know that once I sit down at my desk, open my emails up, I'm gonna have a bunch of stuff I got to do with. But just at what point do you say, okay, you know, it's making sense now. I get it. You know, when did you get comfortable? I'm trying to avoid saying comfortable, but when did you get to that point? I think you get my question. Huh?
No, it's a great question, and I'll even say this to those, because this is supposed to be for young coaches, right, you know, out there, is one of the most negative things. I'll give you, for instance, of what I've done wrong, you know, as a head coach, is I 100% got to what you're saying, I think in probably about year 4 or 5. And I'm not saying I got comfortable and I didn't show up to work or anything like that. It was more of, you know what, you know, we were 9-2. How do I get to the playoffs? Like, I need to get to the playoffs. That's our next step. Where do we go? Well, we went straight athletes, you know, like we need better athletes. I don't care where they are, go. So I cost us, some of those athletes didn't make grades. Some of those, you know, I'm going to show up late every now and then. I started to let that slide because I knew that player is a heck of an athlete and will help us win.
Yeah.
Well, that started deteriorating some of the culture, and it's taken me a couple of years to kind of get that back going. Whereas when you're a fresh head coach, you're going all, you know, you're trying to build that culture.
Right.
And I let that slide a little bit. I let that, you know, not laziness, but the, we've got this and I've done this enough that we can handle it. And so that was probably the most negative thing that I've had.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the I've got this part, I'll give you, for instance, and I don't know when this podcast will be shown. Right now, literally last night, I have a full-time coach that said he has another job and is moving on. Okay. You know, like and he's a heck of a coach. He's one of the best one of the best assistant coaches I've ever had in 11 years. And I'm losing him. He's been here for about 3 years. And so now I've got to put it up on Scoop. I've got to go through the process. I've got to interview guys. You know, I've got to get guys in. Can I get a guy in before spring ball hits, you know, here in another 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks? And it's like my offensive coordinator or my coordinator is a little bit worried. Like, oh my God, you know, we need to do this, that, and the other. And I'm like, you know, I've been here 11 years. I've had a coordinator leave in June. I've had a coordinator leave at the end of July. I've had 2 GAs quit during camp.
Oh, man.
Because one was super homesick. He was from Washington and needed to get back home, and another guy got a better job. Right. You know, like he got paid more to go somewhere else last minute. And so I couldn't fault him, you know, for that. So it sucks, you know, having to replace 2 coaches in August.
Yeah.
You know, like who the heck are you going to find?
Right.
So do I want to say, does it roll off the back of me? No, I mean, it bugs me, but what am I going to do? Sit in a corner and cry about it, or, you know, go drink myself into a frenzy? It's like, no, like you do what you got to do. You got to find a way, and more importantly, you got to do the best that you can for the kids that you got, because these kids that we have, we don't give them, you know, what I had at UCLA. You know, like they get a T-shirt and a pair of shorts. You know, like there's no barber shop, there's no Xbox, there's no thumbprint identification coming into the locker room. You know, but I do have guys that are excited to play football, that love playing football, that love being here at this school. How can I give them the best environment I can for as long as I can? And that's really what I found, especially these last like 3 years, kind of post COVID, especially. How can I have fun? How can, you know, we have players coming by the office. Since it's snacks, it's still compliance. I've got like water and Gatorade for them or whatever. Anytime and they even think that's amazing. You know, like, oh my God, Gatorade anytime. Yeah, I'll come by Coach Babcock's, you know, place or whatever. I'll get a free Gatorade.
Right.
But just having that relationship with the guys, like that's what I've gotten to, especially these last couple of years, and just having fun. And I think it's shown in our culture and kind of where we're at as a team right now. And so that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, you kind of answered this question here for you, and I appreciate you, Coach. I mean, we're slightly over an hour, so I do want to kind of let you go here from a head coaching perspective. I know an hour free time.
I'm good. I love talking football. If this helps young guys, that's what I'm all about.
That's awesome to hear. Well, then I'll go ahead and shoot this question off for you here. You said it, you know, kind of at the very beginning of the podcast, you were talking about, you know, what's that average of a coach in the profession right now. You know, we kind of guessed around 3 years, and you're sitting at a place for 11. You know, that part is success in its own right. And, you know, I know success is never final type deal, but what would you attribute just being able to sit there and be the head guy? And obviously you have, you know, been a Division II head coach, you're going to have a ton of attrition on your staff and guys coming and going and, you know, getting better opportunities or getting out the business or whatnot. But what do you kind of relay that success to just be able to have that longevity?
You know, I would say that, especially if you're at this level, I do believe that can I be successful off the field? And what I mean by that is with players and more importantly with the staff and the administration and everything like that. Can people like me? You know, I kidded with another coach, you know, a couple weeks ago that, you know, that at certain places or whatever, it's not just about the wins and the losses. And that's true, especially here. If you want to be a Division II coach, because I see a lot of young guys and they all want to be in the Division I and be GAs and be quality control and keep going down that route and keep going to be, and that's well and good. What we have at the Division II level is the quality of life right now. You know, so this afternoon, I can be home at 5 and I'm the cook in the household. So to be able to go cook for my family, to take my son to baseball practice tonight, to go do some hitting, you know, to be at my daughter's play, you know, over this weekend. That's the stuff, not only as a head coach, but especially at our level, that's what you get. And I think, especially where Division I is going, I think that's, and when I talk to a lot of coaches that are still up there, that's the one thing they really miss. And a lot of them, even though they don't get paid, or they get paid a heck of a lot more than I do, they miss that. And the ones that have families, the ones that have wives and kids, they're missing a lot. And so to see my kids grow from toddlers to now teenagers, that's been probably the best thing. I think that being here and having that longevity for my family, and for myself. I mean, heck, you know, how many guys have you had on this podcast that have actually coached, been the head coach of their son's baseball team, you know, with it? Like, so that ability in itself, I think is pretty cool. And not just like I didn't have that, you know, no one had that opportunity to go start a program from scratch, or not a lot of coaches. How many coaches have done the baseball stuff or coached their kid in anything? So that's what's special. And that's what's been, you know, if I can't make $11 million as the top Power 5, you know, head coach, at least maybe I can be good with my family. And I've done a lot of different stuff with the NCAA and AFCA and a lot of other stuff to kind of move football in the right direction. And so that's probably the stuff, the family and moving football in the right direction. That's been stuff that I've been most proud of since I've been here.
I am like so just happy that you did hit on that point. You know, I made a couple mentions. I was in a profession for about 12 years, and obviously, just like yours, my first couple of years was filled with, you know, it wasn't about the hours. You worked until you just were done, and so. You know, that's much about what I remember from the profession. My second job was coaching Division I for about 5 years, and then at the FCS level. So it was, I mean, my 12 years was grinding. You know, my 12 years was, you know, that, and then so get the opportunity to come here to the AFCA and see what my house looks like at 4:30 in the afternoon, and you know, not waking up at the crack of dawn has made me, you know, just realize the importance of that quality of life thing. And oftentimes I get, you know, we're about 350 episodes into this podcast. You get some head coaches in their first jobs, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit. You didn't say in much detail. Where you're like, you know, you just want to win. You know, this is my first job. I want to do well, and you grind your butt off. Did you do that initially, or did you come in and say, hey, you know what, I get to run this my own way. I'm going to make sure that I can take my son to practice. You know, I'm going to make sure that my staff is going to have a great quality of life. Or did you have to grow into that? I guess is my question I'm trying to get to.
You know, I think it's a little bit of both. You know, it actually started when I was at Pueblo, and I think, you know, John Riston, the head coach at the time, you know, did a fantastic job of being able to get us out of there, you know, and being able to kind of see and having been at the Division I level, understanding the hours and understanding what we do here, get your work done, go home. Yeah. You know, if I can't pay you $400,000, you know, to be my coordinator, go have dinner with your wife and your kids, you know? And so it's not that important to take an hour and a half to watch, you know, 15 plays of 7-on-7. Yeah. Go in, figure out what needs to get done, fix it, move on, you know? And so I have my grinders, you know, I'll grind every now and then, you know, with it too. But there's a lot of times it's really nice to kind of keep work at work and, you know, go have the family time, you know, go do it. And I wanted to do it for as long as I could at this level, just in case for whatever reason, if it ever came that, you know, Kalen DeBoer didn't want the Alabama job and they decided to call me, you know, with it. And I was back at, you know, Division I, and if that ever happened, obviously I'd have to get back into the grind and go do all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to enjoy it for as long as I can. Yeah. You know, that's another 30 years. That's another 30 years. If it's another 30 days, 30 days. So whatever that may look like.
Well, major respect for that. Just they keep staff wanting to be around. You know, I think that's awesome. Now, you made mention of just being a part of the AFCA and you know, just being in the rooms that are help making some of these decisions to better our game. Why has that been important for you? And you know, why do you continue to be involved in that way?
When I was at Pueblo and I was an assistant, I remember this vividly. The head coach was approached at a convention by this old timer, you know, no idea his name. And he's like, hey, if you're not giving back, you know, to this game and moving the first down marker basically for the game, you know, you're just taking away, you know, you're just using this game, give something back. And I think I really, you know, I really took heart to that, because I don't think it's just about McKendree winning football games or, you know, even though I love my players and I love the school, I also, on top of that, not just because, but, you know, I want to be able to move football in the right direction. And I've been very passionate about that, especially at the Division II level. I actually started before AFCA. I started on the national committee, you know, for Division II. So I've been meeting athletic directors. I've been meeting people at the office, the national office in Indianapolis, trying to make football better. You know, being able to get the red shirt rule to Division II, that was a huge one. Changing spring practices, that was my idea, you know, about 5-6 years ago, you know, making it 5 weeks instead of 4, you know. And so all that came about from my ability to be able to kind of move the needle a little bit. And how do we make football better? And so I'm really passionate about that. And I think my time on the committee, meeting ADs, meeting coaches, has kind of also transitioned to now being on AFCA. I still remember myself and Todd Berry even sitting next to each other at a concussion data task force in Indianapolis, learning about concussions and how it affects our game and what things we need to do to protect it. And I think that kind of has led into my time now on the Board of Trustees, and very excited. I kind of have a passion about it. It's like, okay, how do we? It's not just the concussions. How do we fix early signing period? What does the NIL stuff look like, even at the Division I level?
Yeah.
Like what does the transfer portal look like, and how do we make it better? Not that we have to change it. How do we make all this better?
Yeah.
That's the stuff that I have a passion for, and I'm excited to kind of get involved. So that's why I do it. That's why I'm interested in it, because I want football to continue to move. I want our youth football players to continue on through high school. I don't want to lose football because of this, that, or the other. And so I've got a passion for it, and I'm going to keep trying to move the needle as best I can wherever I'm at, and go from there.
Well, Coach, that is an awesome answer, and we definitely need guys like you, and appreciate everything that you do to make our organization better, and continuing to fight the good fight, not just for your university and kids, which I know you do, but for this profession and for these young guys that are continue to come through these high schools and colleges, and potentially the next level. So we appreciate you.
Absolutely, appreciate that.
And this was definitely enjoyable, man. I'll be honest. We need to go for a round 2 maybe next year or something like that after the convention, and just might left some meat on the bones there for us to talk about.
I was going to say, if you wanted another hour, I can tell you all the GA stories and stuff. Like, if you really want to get into this business and you want to dress up like Santa Claus, just talk to me about it, because but that's another story. We'll save that.
I tell you what, I have wanted to do kind of a spinoff of just some story. Because just in my short time, I got the craziest stories, and I can only imagine. Just the desk thing by itself, just sitting in a dark closet all day long there in Colorado is just, who would ever guess that? So.
Power 5 in a closet with 4 other people, so making nothing.
That's right, man. Well, Coach, once again, man, I appreciate you, and thanks so much, and best of luck to you this spring, summer, and look forward to see you after at the convention there in Charlotte next year.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
CoachComm has been delivering tough headsets for tough teams for more than 31 years. It's why 97% of FBS teams and thousands of high schools across the country rely on CoachComm. Get the best for your team. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm, on wherever you get your podcast, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.